Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Right now we are right outside of Hope, Arizona, or as the sign says, we are beyond hope. The history of the Southwest is filled with colorful characters, and the town we're going to be visiting today was founded by one such character. And through his efforts, in the early 20th century, it became one of the best known small towns in America, with stories such as a 7-year-old frog that didn't know how to swim because it had never seen water, and a 247-mile long golf course. And for early passing motorists, they offered free hot air. But like a lot of small towns, eventually it was bypassed by the interstate, and it's not quite so well known anymore. Well, today we're going to be visiting Salome, or to use its full name, Salome Where She Danced, Arizona. We are on Highway 60, or US Route 60, which once stretched from Virginia to California and was the main road between Phoenix and Los Angeles. This also used to be part of US Route 70, which was known as the Broadway of America, but that highway now ends east of here in Globe, Arizona. Interstate 10 bypassed this part of Highway 60 and the towns along the highway that relied on the traffic between Phoenix and Los Angeles by 1972. Though, in a bit of trivia, while a number of them used to, US Route 60 is the only US route that still goes into Phoenix. The town we are heading to, Salome, while Highway 60 would become an important part of its history, didn't get its start as a highway town, as it predated the highway by decades. We've made it to Salome, and here is the historic marker for the town. Arizona has no shortage of interesting characters in its history, and Salome's founder, Wick Hall, was certainly an interesting character. DeForest Hall was born in Creston, Iowa on March 20th, 1877, and according to his account, that was the coldest day in history. Having been born on such a cold day, he said he needed to find a warm spot in the world, so at 21 years old in 1898, he moved to Arizona. So he certainly found a warm place. It is October, and it is currently 102 degrees as I'm filming this. Hall came to Wickenburg and changed his middle name to Wick in honor of the town. Needing a name that rhymes with Wick, he changed his first name to Dick and became Wick Hall. Around the turn of the 20th century, precious minerals such as copper, silver, and gold drew miners to this area. In 1904, Dick, his brother Ernest, an investor named Charles Pratt, and his wife, Grace Salome Pratt, came out here to where they expected a paved highway between Phoenix and Los Angeles would be built, looking for a spot to start a town. When Mrs. Pratt stepped off the wagon barefoot, she supposedly danced around because the sand was so hot it was burning her feet. Hall called the town Salome Where She Danced. In addition to the historic marker being located here, we can also find the Pocket Park. And here is the park. It consists of some cactus, a tree, and a bench. This building's designed to look like an old service station. After visiting here, Hall filed a claim for several pieces of property under the Homestead Act and opened what he called the Laughing Gas Station, where he'd put up signs for 25 miles in each direction, advertising things such as free hot air. And I believe the Laughing Gas Station was located right around here. Looks like there's a plaque over here, so let's head over and take a look. This may be where the gas station was. The train tracks are right over here as well. And when the gas station was built, the highway wasn't there yet. So they didn't really know exactly where the highway would be going in. So you kind of just had to take a guess when you built the gas station. But it's pretty close, just right off the highway. And yeah, here's where the Laughing Gas Station was. And here's a closer look at what the Laughing gas station would have looked like. And here's an illustration of Wick Hall and his frog, but we'll talk about the frog a little bit later. Let's take a look around the town. We are right next to the train tracks, and I've seen an old picture taken from the other side of the tracks, looking towards this area, and the town has certainly changed since then. Here's the old Santa Fe Depot warehouse. Here's Scheffler's Motel right on Highway 60 that kind of has an interesting spot in Arizona history. In 1939, Russell and Bill Scheffler, who had been involved in offshore gambling operations near Long Beach and Santa Monica, opened Scheffler's Motel in Salome, complete with gambling and prostitution. Gambling was illegal in Arizona, but local law enforcement just looked the other way. The Schefflers did try to go legit and began a campaign under the name the Sullivan Act to legalize gambling in Arizona. They managed to get the act onto the statewide ballot, but it was defeated by about 27,000 votes. The Schefflers also owned a cafe across the street, and the cafe is still open, but it's now called Don's Cactus Bar. California used to have a 3-day waiting period to get married, so a lot of people would head to Arizona where there was no wait. Salome was a popular wedding destination in the 1930s and 40s. There's a little bit of newer history here, a 9/11 memorial with a piece of the World Trade Center. There are over 1,000 memorials like this in small towns all over the world. This was the Oasis Cafe, built in the 1930s. Getting back to Wick Hall and the Salome Frog. In 1917, he created the Salome Sun newspaper, and that's what really brought fame to the town. He'd hand out the paper to travelers who'd stop at his station, so thousands would end up reading the paper. The Salome Sun was filled with tall tales straight out of his imagination. Characters included the Reptile Kid, Windy Bill, and Baldy the Barber. Most famously was a 7-year-old frog that didn't know how to swim because he had never seen water. The frog would become the town's mascot, and the Salome High School is even the Fighting Frogs. In 1922, an editor at the Saturday Evening Post, which was one of the most read magazines in the United States at the time, got a hold of a copy of the Salome Sun and asked Hall to write for the magazine. Hall didn't have time with all his other duties, but he allowed the magazine to republish stories from the Salome Sun. On January 3, 1925, the first of these stories appeared, called Salome Where the Green Grass Grew, where Hall recounts how he ended up with the only green lawn within hundreds of miles and how the commotion it caused ended with him chained to a boulder. Now, millions of people were reading tall tales about Salome. Soon, other papers started publishing Hall stories as well. Tourists started traveling to Salome instead of just traveling through it. A few places online mention that this was a stagecoach stop, though I have my doubts. We're right on Highway 60, and this looks a little new to be a stagecoach stop. I've seen it said that this is where you could tie your horses up, but this looks like an island where a gas pump would have been. It does look like somebody tried to make it look older, like this would have been a place where you tie your horses up, but you can see that this is an original. And there's even the hole right here where there clearly was a gas pump at one time. But let's go take a look inside. And like I said, this is right on Highway 60. I don't believe the stagecoach stop would have been right on Highway 60. The stagecoach did go through this area, but it was north of here. All the other stage station sites in the area were further north, so this would have been kind of out of the way. And from the construction, from the walls inside, this building does not look like it is from the 1800s. It's clearly been burnt at one point, but this looks like it was built sometime in the 1900s. If I had to take a guess, and it would be just a guess, I would say that this was probably constructed in the 1920s. But I haven't found any solid information on it, just a few people claiming without any source that it was a stagecoach station. There's also this old motel right next to the supposed stagecoach station. At the height of motor travel in the area through the 1940s and 50s, there were quite a few hotels and restaurants here, but now only a few are left. Car travel used to take much longer than it does now, and being about 100 miles from Phoenix, this probably would have been a good place to pull your car up and stay the night. Let's take a look inside of one of them to see what the accommodations would have been like. It doesn't look like much now, but this probably would have been a welcome sight traveling through the desert in those pre-air conditioning days. This cactus has probably been around for the entire history of this town. Another tall tale that Wick Hall would talk about in the Salome Sun was the Greasewood Links golf course that was 247 miles long with a 16,394 par. There's an actual real Greasewood desert golf course now, but it's not quite so big. When writing about the golf course in the Salome Sun, Hall stated that anyone who tried to play the 247-mile course would be provided with canteens, pack mules, and a map. There's one more place we want to visit in town before we leave, but I just noticed this old water tower, so made a quick stop. It looks like it's definitely seen better days. This may be the old train station. We're a little bit off the tracks right now, but the tracks may have moved in the last 100 years. But the water tower does look like the one you can see in some of the old photos of the train station. So this is all that remains of Wick Hall's house. Just the fireplace and the foundation. In early April 1926, Hall headed to Los Angeles because of jaw pain. They extracted 16 infected teeth. Unfortunately, they also discovered a serious problem with his kidneys, and Hall never saw Salome again. He passed away on April 28, 1926, in Los Angeles. Hall's body was brought back to Salome, and he was buried right here next to where his house was. Hall was being compared to Mark Twain and Will Rogers, and had made the town he founded a household name. But unfortunately, he passed away right as things were taking off. Within a few years, the road through town would be designated Highway 60, and business would boom from the 1930s to the 1960s with more and more traffic on the road. and thousands of travelers would hear the tale of the frog who could not swim. So that's our look at Salome, Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.